Hi again, everyone, and welcome to Badger Breakdown. I'm Mike Lucas from UWBadgers.com. I'm joined by the voice of the Badgers, Matt Lepay. Call me crazy, and more than enough people have over the years, but I think I know less about this week's opponent, Oregon State, than I did about UNLV in the opener.
Yeah, it's strange with Oregon State. I think you and me and probably anybody who follows college football would have been stunned at the result last week against Sacramento State. And I think really where the unknown comes in is this is a team that's missing a lot of its best players. That's running back, the freshman running back, Malcolm Agnew. There's some question as to whether he's going to be able to go this week. One of their top receivers, one of their top tight ends. They're getting a defensive lineman back who did not play last week, but they're, you know, people probably don't want to hear about injuries being an excuse, but it had to have been some factor in Oregon State not playing as well as it needed to a week ago. So we're not really quite sure what we're going to see when Wisconsin plays Oregon State on Saturday.
My thinking is that it's really difficult to get a line on a team from the West Coast. We just are not exposed enough to Oregon State. Once in a while, we'll see a headline where they upset a Southern Cal, but we don't know a lot about the program itself. Now, we do know more about the coach because of his friendship with Paul Chryst, Mike Riley, and Riley's a pretty prominent coach in the college football circles. But as far as personnel goes, good luck.
Yeah, it's certainly a program that has turned out some good quarterbacks, turned out some good running backs who've gone on to the National Football League. The thing about Oregon State, though, if you look at them, it's a team that traditionally can struggle at times early in the season and then really hits its stride in conference play. Last year was an exception. It was a tough year for the Beavers, but they've had a number of years under Mike Riley where they've really gotten it rolling, and they've been just this close to getting into the Rose Bowl here a couple of times in recent years. Their nemesis, their rival Oregon, has knocked them out of that a couple of times. But I guess the theory has been if you're going to play Oregon State, maybe play them early, because if you catch them later, you could be in for it.
Do you buy that old cliche, and coaches say it every year, that you make the most improvement between game 1 and 2, or is that just something to fill space?
Well, I tell you what, they all say it, don't they?
They do.
I think maybe where they're coming from is at least they have something to build on. I mean, you know, last year, you know, spring ball, you know, fall camp, but now that you have seen your team in a game, you can make your corrections based on an actual game. Maybe that's where they're coming from. I think, you know, we've seen Wisconsin teams just continue, the better teams continue to get better and better each week. I mean, last year, I don't think it was the case. You know, Wisconsin game 2, I don't think was any great shakes, but as the year went on, it certainly continued to get better. Kind of like we were talking about with Oregon State, where the Badgers really hit their stride once you got into that second, third week of October, and then certainly last year, the rest was history.
So how do you get better or more efficient than 8 for 8? On the first 8 possessions, you wind up with 7 touchdowns and a field goal.
Yeah, you really can't. That's pretty hard to beat that. Then they come out in the second half and score a couple of touchdowns as well. Paul Chryst, I think he's right. It was probably not a bad thing that they actually got into some third down situations eventually. It took a while. I don't really know what offensively you can do to get better. Just keep doing what you've been doing. You're going to be playing better teams as the year goes on, and maybe starting on Saturday, we'll see what Oregon State brings. Defensively, I think, is maybe where they're looking for a little bit more improvement. But at the same time, Mike, it was 51-3 before UNLV got going, but coaches being coaches, and I get it, you're always going to look for areas to get better.
Well, the rule of thumb is never to show everything early in the season. I'm sure that Paul Chryst would like to expand those defensive coordinators' film libraries by bringing out a few more plays that they have to contend with.
Yeah, the joke when you watch some other shows, national shows, was Wisconsin only ran about 3 plays. You know, maybe it was more than that, but it certainly didn't have to do anything particularly fancy. We got a glimpse, really a glimpse of Russell Wilson. He attempted 13 passes. We remember the wow play, the 46-yard touchdown.
He didn't even qualify for passing efficiency on the national scale.
Right. You have to throw at least 15, and he threw 13. We got a taste again of Monty Ball and James White. I mean, neither rushed for 100, but the total offense was very impressive, and they combined for all those touchdowns. As the year goes on, you know Paul will do this. You know his counterpart, Mike Riley, will do this. You throw a little bit more in, a little bit more in. It wouldn't surprise me maybe if you saw a couple other things this week.
If there was anything at all disappointing about the opener, and disappointing might be the wrong choice of a word, but I'll use it anyways, it might have been the defense and its inability at times to stop the run. And the players on the field were the first to say so, that they didn't adjust quickly enough.
I have to think there's a rust factor, especially with somebody like a Chris Borland. It would be crazy not to think that. I mean, the guy hasn't played much. You know, it certainly goes well beyond him. And I wonder too, Mike, practices, camps have changed a little bit, and I think we all know why. You're trying to keep your players as healthy as possible, but you don't see as much maybe live tackling during the course of training camp compared to what it used to be in the old days. Here, the old guys talking here, but you know, we watched Barry's teams, and
very true.
And that was maybe that way, if not across the board, but a lot of programs did that, and now more and more of them seem to be pulling back. I mean, it's the line, you want to keep your guys healthy for Saturday, and maybe in week 1 that had something to do with it.
Most important thing, always keep it in perspective, keep it in context. This is just step number 2 in the journey.
We talked last week, don't expect to finish product against UNLV, although it was pretty good, especially on offense, and I think the best teams just continue to get, you know, there's the line week 1 to week 2, but with the best teams, they get a little bit better each week, and we'll see this week what they bring to the table.
For Matt Lepay, I'm Mike Lucas. Thanks for watching UWBadgers.com.